Billionaire Balaji Srinivasan has just made one of the most shocking predictions of this entire decade, announcing that Bitcoin is going to go to $1 million in the next 90 days. And Balaji is so confident of this bet, he's putting his own money where his mouth is, and he's already made a number of multi-million-dollar bets that have sent the internet into an absolute meltdown. Balaji Srinivasan is normally a very well-measured, conservative, and calculated man when he speaks, and that's why his recent tweets and announcements have sent the internet into an absolute frenzy, with many of his tweets going ridiculously viral. So today, we're going to be touching on 4 very important things surrounding Balaji's prediction. I'm going to be showing you the maths of Balaji's prediction and why he might actually not be as crazy as many people think he is. We're going to be discussing what this billionaire could potentially know that we don't know. We're going to be talking about why we should be taking Balaji's words a little bit more seriously than John McAfee's words in 2019 when he predicted Bitcoin would hit $1 million. And we're also going to be talking about why we don't need to see hyperinflation to see a $1 million Bitcoin in 90 days. With all that said, we've got a lot to talk about. Let's get straight into this one. Welcome back to the Money Matters YouTube channel that is powered by Coinbase. If you're new here, my name is Luke, and today we're going to be talking about the biggest bet in the Bitcoin space that I have seen in a number of years. Balaji Srinivasan. Who is this guy? Is he crazy? And does he have the money to back up these multi-million-dollar bets that he's just been throwing around the internet recently? Balaji Srinivasan is an angel investor and a technology company founder, okay? He's also written one of the best books that I believe has been written since 2020. It's a New York Times bestseller titled The Network State. And Balaji has gained a lot of credibility over the years because he holds a bachelor's and a master's and a PhD in electrical engineering and a master's in chemical engineering. Both of those were done at Stanford University. And it's worth noting, Balaji has nearly 1 million followers on Twitter, and he is not a Bitcoin maxi or a crypto guy, okay? Balaji is one of these polymath type guys who actually talks and has expertise in many different fields, okay? He's been on a number of the biggest podcasts in the world. He's been on the Tim Ferriss podcast multiple times. Lex Friedman had him on for an 8-hour interview to talk about all these other topics surrounding Bitcoin, okay? So for him to make such a bold claim in the Bitcoin space speaks volumes because he's putting his reputation at risk, okay? You know, he has a reputation in the wider technologies field, in the artificial intelligence field, in the self-improvement field, and for him to make a bold claim like this in the Bitcoin space puts all of that other reputation and intellectual capital, I suppose, at risk, okay? So that's very interesting and something to keep note of. Yes, Balaji has $1.5 billion in net worth, okay? So he has the money to put behind these multi-million-dollar bets. And obviously, yes, losing a $1 or $2 million bet will put a small dent into his net worth, and it's not exactly chump change, but I think the bigger thing Balaji is risking is actually his intellectual reputation, okay? It's not necessarily the economic pain of losing a couple of $1 million bets. It is the intellectual reputation that he's built up over the years. And I actually call him a little bit of a walking, talking encyclopedia. I've actually listened to Balaji for a number of years now, and he's pretty insightful on lots of topics. I disagree with him on a couple of his viewpoints around the cryptocurrency scene, but on Bitcoin, I think he's directionally correct in most of his views. He was obviously the former CTO over at Coinbase, which is the largest exchange there is in the entire cryptocurrency space. So Balaji put this tweet thread out only a couple of days ago in response to the enormous banking crisis that has caused the Fed to expand its balance sheet by $300 billion. Balaji has come out and said they're about to print another $2 trillion to hyperinflate the dollar. That's his words, not mine. I know a lot of people would click off the video when I use the word hyperinflation, but trust me, you're going to want to stick around because Balaji does bring some receipts to back up that extraordinarily provocative claim, okay? But what he says in the tweet is Bitcoin is going to go to $1 million in response to this financial crisis. And this is leading a lot of people to kind of say, hey, what does this billionaire know that I don't know? Because he's out there throwing around these $1 million bets on the internet very confidently saying Bitcoin is going to reach $1 million in the next 90 days. Okay, you can see here this guy called James Medlock. He's a very popular guy on the left. Okay, in his bio here, we can actually see he calls himself a social democrat in the streets. We're going to leave that there, but you can see his tweet. Yesterday, he says, I'll bet anyone $1 million that the US does not enter hyperinflation. And our good friend Balaji, the man who I call a walking, talking encyclopedia, quote tweeted that tweet. And he said, guess what, James? I will take that bet. You buy one Bitcoin, I'll send you $1 million in USD. Let's lock it up in an escrow and let's do this 90-day bet. And the bet has begun, okay? So why is Balaji so confident? Well, in his original tweet thread, where he's talking about the bit signal, no, I'm not talking about the bat signal from Batman. We're talking about Balaji and the bit signal, okay? He says, how do you ring the fire alarm on the internet? How do you tell people that something big is happening, there is a fire, and people need to get out of the house? In this thing called the bit signal, Balaji is going to pay 1,000 different content creators $1,000 if they create the best charts, graphs, and statistics that highlight what is going on with the banking collapse and why Bitcoin is the beautiful lifeboat to save you from the sinking ship that is the Titanic. And it's a real thing. If you click on this second tweet here, it takes you to a little web page that Balaji's whipped up called the Bit Signal. No, I'm not joking. It's there. And you put a little link to your tweet, your email address, and your Bitcoin address. And if you have one of those best 1,000 graphs, charts, or images, Balaji's going to send you $1,000. Okay, this is all part of his Bit Signal initiative. Now, moving on into this tweet thread, let's actually have a look at his reasoning for why he believes Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million. Okay, it's an outrageous claim. Okay, and he shows some really nice charts here that show the banks are way more insolvent than they were in 2008. Have a look at the losses on their balance sheet. Okay, we're looking at securities. And we're also looking at bonds, and you can see that the banks right now are suffering. He references some great work here from Lynn Alden and the FDIC, as well as the Kansas City Federal Reserve Board. He moves on and he says, guess what? I'm a little bit annoyed because the banks and the regulators knew what was going on, okay? He says here, the FDIC and the Fed knew that SVB, Silicon Valley Bank, and hundreds of other banks had less assets than their liabilities that they had, okay? So he also moves on to call out the central bankers, okay? He calls out the central banker who ran the euro. You can see here, Balaji says, the central banker who ran the euro literally said, when things get serious, you have to know how to lie. And then he moves on in this same tweet and he says, look, 4 days ago, the central bankers said that they're only going to need to print $25 billion to save the banks. 4 days later, and they're already talking about $2 trillion, okay? The central bankers are saying they're going to need $2 trillion to fill the holes in the balance sheets of the banks that are being affected. And he says it here pretty nicely. Soon it will be infinity divided by 21 million. Hat tip there to Knut's fun home. But moving on, we can see, okay, hyperinflation, when it happens fast. And we can see here, Balaji brings the receipts to back up his earlier claim about hyperinflation. He shows, look at the 56 episodes of hyperinflation in history. He shows how quickly it can happen. In 1945 in Hungary, prices doubled in the space of 15 hours at the very beginning of the hyperinflation, showing just how quickly your savings can be eroded when there is serious loss in faith in the currency, okay? And Balaji says, guess what? The central bankers know that people could be about to lose faith and they're blocking the exit valves. So this tweet here is actually my favorite because Balaji gets a little bit cryptic with his messaging and his suggestions. He says the US establishment just killed Signature Bank and Silvergate Bank because they banked Bitcoin and crypto businesses, okay? So what he's saying is that the establishment is trying to block off the exit valves. You can see it here at the bottom of the tweet. Balaji says, first they close the doors, then get everyone inside, okay? So you can see here at the bottom of the tweet, Balaji says this is what all economically bankrupt regimes do. They build Berlin walls that prevent freedom to exit. unless you get out first, okay? Now, this is the whole idea of the bit signal, okay? He's trying to create an initiative that wakes people up and kind of says, hey, hyperinflation can happen quickly. We just watched the second biggest banking collapse in US history, okay? We haven't seen anything like the sort of bank run we've seen this week since the 1930s Great Depression. And Balaji believes that the deflationary pressures we're living through is going to create an enormous hyperinflationary response from the central bankers. So that original tweet that Balaji has put out has over 4 million impressions now at the time of recording, and that's because the internet is abuzz, okay? This thing is going viral because it's not very often we have a billionaire who has 1 million or plus followers on these social media platforms making such bold claims about Bitcoin. The last time we had somebody who had this kind of stature making such a bold claim around Bitcoin was obviously the late John McAfee, okay? McAfee had this to say in 2019, predicting the price of Bitcoin.
Go back to 10th grade mathematics when you first learned things like algebra and run the fucking numbers. If it's less than $2 million by the end of 2020, then mathematics itself is a flawed discipline.
There you have it. McAfee actually said if Bitcoin doesn't hit $1 million, maths is wrong. What's algebra? None of that matters, okay? He was very confident, and obviously McAfee predicted Bitcoin many years ago to reach $5,000 by the end of 2017. We can see here by this tweet. So lots of people actually thought, okay, this guy has some credibility, okay? He built the largest antivirus software. Most of you would actually have it installed onto your computer. The McAfee antivirus program was actually very popular. This guy accurately predicted the price of Bitcoin in 2017. He came out and said a couple of years later, hey, the same model I used in 2017 is telling me that Bitcoin's going to be $1 million by the end of 2020. And everybody was actually taking this guy seriously. And he even said some very interesting things on the internet that I will not comment on, talking about certain appendages of his body he would eat on live TV if Bitcoin did not hit $1 million in 2020. Obviously, that did not happen, but the internet was all a buzz of McAfee when he was making these predictions. Obviously, Bitcoin did not hit that price target in 2020, and McAfee did not make any explicit videos and post them on the internet when he was in fact proved wrong, okay? But when you have people with such large, followings and reputations making such bold claims like this, the internet's going to talk about it. And the more recent claims and predictions from Balaji actually come at a very interesting time in the Bitcoin cycles, okay? Bitcoin has actually rallied by around 75% since it put in that low a few months ago at $15,500. Bitcoin's now at $27,000, and there's been no real catalyst for Bitcoin's rise. And a lot of people are kind of scratching their head saying, why is Bitcoin rising? And you kind of have to ask yourself the question, what does Balaji know, okay? Does Balaji right now know that a central bank is quietly accumulating Bitcoin, and that is why we have pumped from 15,000 to 28,000? I don't know. It's just a theory I want to throw out there, okay? I don't know exactly what Balaji knows, but he must know something, okay? Otherwise, he's going to look very silly in 90 days' time, okay? And obviously, Balaji has been wrong on multiple occasions in the past, okay? I 100% disagree with his views on Ethereum and crypto. He is very bullish on both of those things, and I certainly am not, okay? So again, take everything you hear on the internet with a grain of salt. I just wanted to cover the topic. I wanted to also put my own little spin on the topic because I see people doing these math calculations surrounding Bitcoin that I don't think is correct, okay? I actually think that you need to think about some other things when predicting the price of Bitcoin, because most people don't consider the fact that a majority of the Bitcoin supply is not available for sale, okay? So when you hear these people talking about $1 million Bitcoin, they say, okay, well, you're going to need $20 trillion of capital to actually flow into the market. So they'll do the maths like this. They'll say, okay, $20 trillion needs to flow in to the 21 million Bitcoin supply, okay? And they say, okay, that's going to give you a price tag of around 952,000. or for the ease of demonstrative purposes, $1 million per Bitcoin. But what they miss is there is not 21 million Bitcoins actually available for sale. I'll throw up a chart right now, but 70% of the Bitcoin supply has not moved in over 1 year. And that's why you have this thing called a multiplier effect, okay? So for every $1 that flows into Bitcoin and tries to buy some Bitcoin, it does not push the market cap up by $1, okay? I actually ran some numbers on this in 2021. I wrote an article on why I believe Bitcoin is in the second phase of its technological adoption curve. And I said, I was forecasting where I believe the price of Bitcoin is going to be by 2030. And I said, okay, let's be a little bit bullish. Let's assume half of the money, $450 trillion, okay, of global wealth tries to flow into Bitcoin to buy Bitcoin. It's not going to push the market cap up by 450 trillion because you need to use the 3x multiplier effect, okay? Willy Woo has a great chart on his website that shows for the past 5 years, the average multiplier effect has been around 2.6x, okay? So for every $1 that tries to flow into Bitcoin, pushes market cap up by 2.6x. And when you run these numbers and when you say, okay, what happens hypothetically if half the world's wealth actually flows into Bitcoin? Well, you're going to actually be looking at a $64 million per Bitcoin price tag in today's dollars without hyperinflation. This is what most people miss. I believe you can get a $1 million Bitcoin, even a $10 million Bitcoin without hyperinflation. And that is probably the topic for another video. What did you guys think of this video with Balaji? Do you think he is too bullish? Do you think I'm too bullish? Let me know in the comments down below. Let me know any theories that you've heard surrounding Balaji, and let me know why you think he's so confident that he thinks Bitcoin's going to hit $1 million in the next 90 days. If you enjoyed this video, guys, and if you made it this far into today's video, feel free to slap a like on it and subscribe to the channel if you enjoyed it. And I might slap another 2 videos up on screen that I think you'll enjoy as well if you made it this far into this one. And before we round this thing out, I want to quickly thank today's show sponsors who help improve the quality of these videos. Okay, guys, if you appreciate better quality videos that I'm making, give the show sponsors some love. Of course, I'm talking about Swan Bitcoin, the best place to DCA and buy Bitcoin. They're going to give you $10 of free Bitcoin if you sign up with them. Of course, the Foundation Passport hardware wallet, guys, great hardware wallet, and you don't want to be holding Bitcoin on an exchange. Like Balaji says, the banks are not to be trusted, and so are the Bitcoin exchanges. So buy your Bitcoin wherever you're going to buy it and then put it onto your own hardware wallet. Check out the Foundation Passport wallet. Get $10 off if you use promo code BEAST. And if you go into the Bitcoin Miami 2023 conference, make sure you use promo code COINBEAST for 10% off your tickets. And with all that said, guys, hope you have a great day, and I'll see you all in the next video.